This is Eric Rosen, and it's Super Bowl Sunday. I hope you guys enjoy the game. I'm making more LinkedIn and YouTube posts, so if you enjoy my videos, check them. They will not all make the Rosen Report. My piece today is called Cocaine Hippos. You say, what is that all about? Well, apparently, Pablo Escobar, the massive drug dealer from the 80s, actually shipped in 4 hippos to his private zoo in Colombia. What's happened since then, those hippos have multiplied and multiplied. There's 170 hippos in the area of Colombia where he used to live, and they're overtaking the town. So I called today's piece Cocaine Hippos, and it's just interesting. These things can get 10,000 pounds and run 19 miles an hour. Their teeth can be 20 inches long, and they're very, very, very aggressive. There's a great video that I inserted that I thought was fascinating about hippos and how territorial they are and how male hippos attack each other to rule the area. So it's very interesting if you're interested in nature. But that's a great segue into Pablo Escobar. Now, I don't mean to glorify a drug dealer who killed thousands of people, including many innocent ones, but it's hard not to be fascinated by what this young man has created or had created before he was killed by the Colombian authorities. So Pablo Escobar died at 44. If you look and see how he started, it's really fascinating. Before getting the drug trade, he stole tombstones and sold them. That's how he started making money. In the mid-90s, his cartel brought in $420 million a week. In 1985, in today's dollars, that would be over $1 billion a week with inflation. He lost $2.1 billion a month in a loss factor. A lot of it was eaten by rats. It just fell apart because the money was old. It was lost $2.1 billion a month. He spent $2,500 a month on rubber bands for all the money. $2,500 a month in 1985. He made the Forbes list. He was one of the wealthiest people in the world. He once started a fire with $2 million. He was on the run from authorities and his little daughter was cold. So he burned $2 million to keep her warm. By the end of the 80s, he was responsible for 80% of the world's cocaine. He smuggled 15 tons of cocaine into the U.S. every day. Biggest shipment was 51,000 pounds into the U.S. He is said to have smuggled cocaine on airplane tires, and the pilots could earn $500,000 a day if they flew the planes. And remember, this is 85. Inflation with inflation, that money's worth almost triple. So it's almost $1.5 million they would have earned a day today. He hid money in thousands of walls. His nephew found $18 million in the walls of a house. And I had read that Colombian authorities only found 400 of his safe houses, and he's said to have 2,000 to 3,000. So there are thousands of homes in Colombia with tens of millions of dollars in the walls, probably all disintegrated or eaten by rats by now. He once offered the country of Colombia $10 billion to give him leniency and fight extradition charges. The list goes on, but I'm not here to glorify him, but I just thought his life was very, very interesting. Call me crazy, but I just don't love Vegas. My biggest pet peeve is smoking, and I have never smoked in my life. When you're in Vegas, you got to walk through casinos filled with smoke. And it appears that every casino I went to in Vegas was indeed filled with smoke. Walking to your room, you have to walk through smoke. We did go out to dinner one night, which was nice. It's called Lago. It was fun. I thought the food underwhelmed. I have some pictures to show you. Overpriced, but it was Super Bowl week, so it's hard to get the best reservations. I have had some issues with Rosen Report jobs. There's been a few glitches. I'm not going to push it hard until they're solved, hopefully in the next week or so. But I do have multiple internships posted, and I hope you check it out. Get resumes up, send in your resumes, and hopefully more folks will post summer internships. There's some quite good ones on there. I hope you guys get jobs. That's what I'm trying to do, is get college kids jobs. I was driving to the golf course on Saturday in my convertible, and right in front of me was a kid riding a motorized bike. I don't know how this is allowed on a busy street. It was. And I thought to myself, wow, this is dangerous. I looked down for a second and I see a helmet in the middle of the street and the car flipped over. It was 1 minute after the guy took off in front of me at the light. It was on Military Trail just north of Hillsborough. I pulled the car over thinking for sure this young man was killed by a car. And I ran up to the car that was flipped and there was a woman inside, and I checked to see if she was okay and she was conscious and she could move. And I said, where is the biker that you just hit? She said, I didn't hit a biker. I said, are you sure? She said, yes. And I was convinced the bike was underneath the car with the kid in it or on it. Myself and another gentleman helped her get out of the car and got her out safely before the authorities arrived. And I said, whose helmet is that? She said, it's mine. I'm a firefighter and it's my helmet. It wasn't a firefighter helmet, but apparently she rides a motorcycle. Apparently the young girl cut her off and sent her spinning over. And as you can see, the car flipped over, very scary. And I have a 15-second video just showing not the accident, but the aftermath. So scary, but thankfully it appears that the young woman firefighter was okay. S&P 500 onto quick bites. S&P 500 closed at another record high, over 5,000. And the government's December inflation was lower than expected. So again, stocks continue to perform well. The Russell 2000, which has been a big laggard, finally started catching up a little bit this week and outperformed, which is great to see a broader rally. I want to put something in perspective. If you bought the S&P in January of 2009, it's worth over 640% more today. So quite a run in the last 15 years. Oil is up again on the Middle East concerns after the U.S. killed another militant commander in Iraq. And Bitcoin is up to 47,500, up 11% on the week as inflows into ETFs continue and the prospect of halving happens soon. I've got some charts here. I thought this was a Wall Street Journal article that was interesting. Investors are almost always wrong about the Fed. And there's a great chart about how the Fed has been different than most investors think. A month ago, it looked like there was going to be almost 6 rate cuts. A couple weeks ago, it looked like there was going to be 5 to 6 rate cuts. Now it looks like there's going to be a little less. And based on what the Fed is saying, I'd be surprised if there was more than 3 unless inflation really comes down hard. This is a good article about affordability of cars. And it shows, I've got a couple charts in there that show how unaffordable cars have become. And interestingly, the average car owner has $7,000 of negative equity. They bought the car for $52,000 and it's worth $45,000 and they still owe $52,000. So you're seeing a lot more negative equity in cars, and there's a couple good charts, and they're also becoming less affordable. Everything about them, from the prices to maintenances to PARs and equipment and parking fees and tolls, is going up. And there's a good inflationary chart over the last few years showing the increase in prices of cars and cost of running them. Now, I would be disingenuous if I didn't talk about a tough subject, and that is the Department of Justice's announcement and article about Biden and his mental acuity. Now, we're talking about the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, and we've never been in a time in the last 50 years that we have more geopolitical risk coming from all sides. I think we need to tackle this issue and talk about it. I know some people are going to hate me for talking about it and want to poo-poo what the Department of Justice said, but I'm going to read some things. The Department of Justice said he had diminished faculties and faulty memory. Classified docs also revealed that the Afghan files that he left next to the dog in the garage were just done carelessly. And there are many issues with President Biden. He's in his 80s. If he won presidential election, I think he would be 86 during presidency. And everybody admits that Democrats and Republicans like Hillary Clinton admitted it. James Carville, who's a huge Democrat, admitted it. Paul Begala admitted it. All these people are very concerned about his age and what it means, as are the American public. So the report further called Biden a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. But Biden said, "Don't worry, my memory is fine." And then he forgot a bunch of names as he was selling how great his memory was. So I think after this DOJ report, we have to take a harder look. I personally think the Democrats have to insert someone else. I think the person with the best chance of winning for the Democrats is Michelle Obama. I think if they were to put in Michelle Obama, I think she would certainly beat Trump or anybody else that the Republicans put up. But I don't think the Democrats can ignore the issue or the issues with Biden today. And I think there was a horrible week. He also did not agree to the interview during the Super Bowl, which I think would have put a lot of people's minds at ease had he done a good job. Having said that, Trump did not do it 4 years ago either. But I think in light of what's going on with Biden, he really should have done it. I have a lot more in my piece about this. And I'm not saying that Trump is the answer. He's elderly. He's got mental issues. Oh, yeah, 91 indictments and 2 impeachments. So I'm not here to tell you Trump's the guy. I'm here to tell you that Biden should not be candidate for Democrats. And this week, in my mind, sealed it. I missed a story from a couple months ago in Chicago. I went out to dinner. Actually, a reader took me out to dinner the other night who's a restaurateur in Chicago. And he told me about the One Fair Wage Act. This increases the wages of waiters to $15 plus an hour plus tips. Waiters are already the highest paid people in the house. And it's going to really pressure the restaurants to cut costs other ways because the waiters are going to make so much money. And think about what's happened in Chicago. High crime, homelessness, horrible weather, high taxes, mandates, and now another mandate called the One Fair Wage Act. The Illinois Restaurant Association interviewed a bunch of restaurants. They said they're going to raise menu prices. 80% said that. They're going to reduce staff or consolidate positions. 66% said that. And reduce employee hours. 58% said that. So we have some major issues in restaurants in Chicago. And my friend said you're going to see 20% plus close due to this new law. On to other headlines. My hot and heavy topic of U.S. deficits continues. the deficits will soar over the next 10 years. The CBO, that's a Congressional Budget Office, just came out and said we will have $20 trillion of budget deficits over the next 10 years. This is after running budget deficits for the last 22 years, 23 years. We're going to run budget deficits for the next 10 years of averaging $2 trillion. It's unsustainable. We need people in Congress that can make tougher decisions and be more fiscally responsible. It has to end now. Oh yeah, by the way, America has never had so many 65-year-olds, and they're redefining the milestones. So we're talking about the ramifications of the aging baby boomers, and I have charts. ARM, the chip maker, had massive earnings, and it was up 100% in a few days on the earnings. I've been very hard on SoftBank. I think the management team is a bit of a clown show. I have not agreed with the way they've done. They've spent billions and billions of dollars wastefully. Having said that, their stock was up 19% this week. At the Rosen Report, we call them out, and then we have to give them credit when they do well. Having said that, SoftBank, since July of 2010, the ADR is up 205%, while the S&P is up 345%. She would have done better in the S&P index fund than SoftBank for taking all that risk and all that volatility. Article about Trump being forced to pay $450 million in fines over the 2 New York civil cases. And the article basically suggests he doesn't have as much money as he said. I've always said that. I think when he ran for president, he put in that his net worth was over $10 billion. I'll take the under by a lot. On to New York crime. A doorman in my neighborhood, I lived at 74th and Park, a doorman across the street, 1 block away, saved a woman being attacked by illegal immigrants in the middle of the day. The article suggests in the higher end district of the Upper East Side, women are no longer wearing jewelry to walk outside their houses because of the crime wave. This is the Upper East Side, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe, just maybe, Bragg's first day orders aren't right where crime isn't prosecuted and migrants run free. So maybe we should look at that. Finally, having said that, we call out the good and the bad. DA Bragg actually indicted the 7 migrants who attacked the cops in the subway after letting them go initially. So thank you, Bragg, for finally doing the right thing. It's rare, but when you do it, we're going to call you out and give you the props when you do. I love this story in Canada. A cocaine dealer was handing out business cards with cocaine in little bags on the cards. Brilliant idea, brilliant marketing. Well, maybe not. He got caught in jail. Border agents encountered over 1 million migrants since October 1st, and a growing number of them are from China. I am sorry, you cannot do anything in China without the Chinese government. I will guarantee you some of these Chinese that are coming in are spies. 5 trans players dominate women's college volleyball games, sparking outrage and cheating. I just got to tell you, I do not condone trans playing volleyball against women. I think it's dangerous. We saw an incident of a high school girl get severely injured and concussed when a former boy who was transitioning to a girl spiked the ball in the little girl's face. I am all for your right and desire to transition. I have no problem if you do and you're an adult. I have a problem with a 9-year-old doing it. I don't think they know what they're doing. And there's a number of cases now that they regret doing that and they were forced to by their parents or school teacher. I do not believe that boys who are historically boys that are transitioning to girls should be able to compete against girls. And if you look at history, all the ones who were boys tended not to be very good at their sport. Leah Thomas was ranked in the hundreds, but when she transitioned to a woman, she was number 1 and won the NCAAs. I don't think it's fair. Super Bowl bets shatter records, and I thought this was interesting, the economics of a Super Bowl ad. And I have a chart. I won't go over all of it. In 2004, the 30-second spot was $2.2 million. Today, it's $7 million. Last story here is mutant wolves are roaming in Chernobyl, and it looks like they've developed cancer-resilient abilities. So this could be interesting. Of all the horror that came out of Chernobyl, maybe something good. I remember vividly being in high school when Chernobyl happened. So very, very scary. On to real estate. A record number of Americans cannot afford rent. It's found that a record high 22.4 million households are struggling to pay rent, half of renters nationwide. We're spending more than 30% of their income. I have some very good charts here. And total credit card debt in the U.S. is over $1 trillion. I have a good chart on that. I wrote about rent-stabilized apartments and the carnage in a prior newsletter. And this article goes into more details, gives more examples of what's happening on the rent-stabilized market, which is concerning. And my last note in the real estate section is looking at bank exposures to real estate. And that is a great chart I have that shows bank exposure to commercial real estate. And so you really got to look at that chart if you're interested. And one more, I'm going to talk about a house on my block sold for a record amount. It sold for $16.9 million on the golf course. When I moved in, for perspective, in 2017, when I bought my house, I was the highest priced golf course house ever. And people told me, Eric, you're crazy for spending $6.3 million on a golf course lot. That's never been done. Well, 7 years later, $16.9 million appears to be the new level. House prices in my neighborhood on average have gone from 3.6 million to 8.4 million in the 7 years, and the median price went from just over 3 million to 6.3 million. So I will say things have heated up over the last few weeks. This is peak buying season. People are down from cold weather, and there's been a lot of very high price deals done from Miami to Palm Beach in the last few weeks. I think it lasts another month and then it cools down, and then you have the summer slowdown as things get warmer and people go back north. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rosen Report. Thank you and have a great day.